Hey guys, Cameron Davis here with another video for AVGL. This time around, I'm not going to be talking about a particular team or a particular matchup, but rather a particular player. And this one may not be the one that you quite expect. For those who do not know, CEVO has, for each match, they give like different awards and stuff. Like they have MVP, which is the highest efficiency, which is they have their own rating system similar to how HLTV have their own like rating system. I don't know how it works, but it is what it is. They have like something like called the professional, awarded the players with the highest ADR, assistant, most assists, marksman, highest accuracy. But they also have stuff like mortality king, most deaths, forgettable, which is the most average. They have amateur hour, lowest efficiency, and my favorite, which is the masturbator, which is awarded the player who died last in the most rounds. The reason, but also among that, they also have on their front page awards given to stuff regarding the entire season so far. They have top players, which is the efficiency, most assists, most aces, highest headshot percentage, the highest KDR, kill death ratio, highest ADR, average damage per round, highest kills per round, and the most clutch kills, which I'm 99% sure on this, but that's just the most kills in a 1vx situation. And there is one player in particular who holds the top seed on 4 out of the 8, which is Intox. He holds not the top seed, but he holds the gold medal, I guess. The first place on top players, highest KDR, highest ADR, and highest KPR, and by a more significant margin than any other. Like like for example, for the top players, the highest efficiency, he's got a 29.38. Second place drops to a 22.25, then 22.17, 20.28, 20.26. So like the largest margin in there is from first to second place, and it's the same story for all 4 categories that he's first in. And I didn't recognize this player. I didn't recognize his name, and so I was thinking, oh, maybe he's just a player from one of the groups that I haven't given due attention to. Which is true. He's part of Group D, which, if you've heard me talk about it before, whether on AVGL Weekly Aftermath or even just tweeting about it, they're the group with like C-Tech, Champlain, Georgetown University, and what's the fourth? Carleton University, who are kind of all 4 fighting for the top spot. Which is like, it's unusual because most groups you see like 2, maybe 3 players. Like you see like 2 people fighting for the top, or like one person solidly at the top, one team solidly at the top, and then 2 teams fighting for second place sort of situation. This is the one that we see like 4 teams all equally matched fighting for the top. And he is part of that group, but however, he is not part of one of those 4 teams. He is a member of Virginia Tech, which are currently 2-2 in this season. And so I was a little caught off guard that the player with the first, like with the highest all of this was in an average, like run of the mill team. And I was thinking, I was kind of expecting at first that he was just really good and the rest of his team was shit around him, but that is just not the case. What is the case though is that he has only out of the 4 games that Virginia Tech has played, he's only played in 2 of them, and those 2 games were they played 2 games against the top 4 that I just mentioned, and then 2 games against the bottom teams. He's played in the 2 games against the bottom teams. So that definitely plays a factor into the fact that his score lines, his ratios are better than so many other players, even being on an average team. But even when you look at that, even when you look at the games, he's still leading his team. Like, for example, against the Marist Red Foxes, also known as the We Drink University on the CEVO page, the first map, Mirage, he went 26-3-6 with a plus 20. Second place on his team would be Underwater Hippo with 18-4-9, given it a plus 9. So this player Intox is definitely a good player nonetheless. And so I was just gonna go in and watch some of the demos and figure out what it is about him that's good. And because they still have to play the other 2 top teams of the other two of the top 4, maybe if he stays on the roster. Because they played the first 2, C-Tech and Champlain, earlier on, and then he was brought in before they played Marist Foxes and Maryland. So if he stays on Maybe they could upset Carleton, Georgetown University, and kind of throw Virginia Tech as a 5th into that scramble for the top. But yeah, as I said, unfortunately, the only demos I could watch against the teams that, I'm just gonna say it, Virginia Tech just straight up outclassed. But either way, I was still able to do some research on him and why he is such a good player and why what about him allowed him to get even the top scoreline even amongst the rest of his team. And on the CT side, he is a very conservative player. He's like an anchor player, I guess you could describe it. He doesn't push at all unless he's given the space. In fact, my one big criticism of this player is that he can sometimes be too conservative. He can sometimes fall back too far and maybe give up too much space to the enemy team. He rarely leaves his team out to dry when he does that, though. So you could argue whether or not it's a good or bad thing. But also being said, better teams could also have a better chance of blocking him out. Like, for example, if he misses a pick at mid on Inferno, he will fall all the way. Sometimes, a lot of times, he'll fall all the way back to Library and watch Arch side. Good teams have a higher chance of just throwing a smoke at Library and completely blocking him out. And so we'll see against better teams more coordination and better use of utility if he's still able to put up as good of a scoreline. I think he will, though, just because I've seen how he played against other teams. But that is definitely something that you can... I keep forgetting this word when I want to use it. You can punish and... I can't get the right word. He's I guess you could call him the main opper for his team. He definitely uses the op more than any other member. He's not an op or nothing player, though. I actually think he's a much better rifler than he is an opper. And cause that means that his flicks aren't really good, because he's not a good opper. And when I say that, I mean it's not like his skill set lies in the use of the weapon of the op. But he is a good player to have an op put on him, because he'll like anchor a spot, hold an angle, and if he misses, he'll fall back. He's not like a JW or a Kenny S or a Fallen who just like rush out there and try to get the aggressive fast picks. He's more of the device style of play where he just falls back and plays conservative and just hits the shots. He can't do like super insane flicks or anything like that. But he's definitely a good support style opper. And like on a team with a star opper, he would be a good secondary opper to have. Like on the CT side and all that stuff. What is that? With the rifle, though, I feel like he has really, really good spray control. And as well as relatively good accuracy when you don't really call rifle flicks, but when he does flick onto a player with his rifle, he's not a scream in that sense. But he's not a get right where it's just the spray control why he's so good is like an in between. But his spray control is relatively decent. He'll usually get the kill within the first 4 or 5 bullets, I guess. Yeah, he also like just doesn't take unnecessary duels when he's on the CT side. Again, that plays into the fact that he plays really conservatively. But that's definitely a good thing, because you see a lot of times not bad players, but like worse players will just always assume that if you always assume that you're gonna get the 1v1, you better be up like 13-0 before you can start assuming that. Because if you're at an even score line, or if you're even down and you just continue to play like you're a better player, and you just don't win those duels, you gotta stop. And he does not fall into that trap at all. On the T side, they just have really good team play. And there's something particular about him necessarily on the T side that gives him such a good scoreline, on the fact that he's just a better shot than the rest of his team. Except for the fact that once they I saw that once they recognize that they outclass the enemy team, he goes ham and will entry frag and get all the kills. But I don't expect to see that so much when they play against who they have to play, Carleton University and Georgetown University, which are the other two of the top 4 teams in this group. I don't expect to see that so much. I expect to see a lot more just overall team play, and then him, I guess, just being a slightly to moderately better shot than the rest of his team, which will keep him at the top of the scoreboard as far as KDR. I had another note. Yeah, he also has elite stats amongst his team pretty consistently. And again, conservative playstyle, he'll fall back, but he also just doesn't rush out. But one thing I do want to notice that I noticed, and I want to, I guess, give commendation to, is that he is a smart player. This was on Inferno versus Mirage versus Maris Red Foxes. They were in a 3v1 situation, and they had the B bomb site. There was an AK. They were on the terrorist side. There was an AK dropped up on the exit to of apartments right above white truck. The enemy CT, I think he was coming up from mid, but I don't think they knew exactly where he was coming from. He took the AK and just threw it out of bounds, just so, because it was a force up by the CTs, just to be sure, because they all had weapons. Everyone on his team had weapons. He just threw it out of bounds, so the CT couldn't pick it up and then do a surprise clutch with the picked up AK. Another situation, there was a 1v4. They had the A site. This is in the same game. He had an op and then a Tech 9 as a secondary. They, just because they were able to zero in on the fact that the last remaining CT, who another save round, couldn't be anywhere else but the CT spawn area, and he was at jungle. And so instead of running out there and trying to hit with the op, he drops the op back in jungle, and with this Tech 9 goes out through the vent hole and takes the pistol duel. And that may sound like it's a lot maybe confusing why he does that. He does that just because if he loses the pistol duel, the enemy team does not have a chance to pick up the op and either save it or clutch with it. It couldn't clutch with it, but it couldn't save it and couldn't steal it from his team. So those two situations in the same game just shows that he's really aware on how economy works and what's the word? I guess just like how to manage risk reward, and it's not all about hitting the headshots and just being really super cool. It's about managing the entire game. That's definitely something that he's good at. That I have yet to. I'm not gonna say no one else does it, but I have yet to notice it myself. Any other player has done that. Again, we'll see if he keeps his awards when they go up against. Who is it? Georgetown University and Carleton University. But nonetheless, I'm not going to say he earned it outright in talks, just because he got these numbers by only playing teams that his team outclassed. But he's definitely the not carry, well, I guess carry the team. He's definitely like the ace of their team.